Hey, I want to give a special thank you out to Brad from Crow's Nest CB Radios and Brad's Custom Exhaust. Thank you for holding our trapping group get-together, lesson on trapping. Thanks for holding our trapping seminar today. John was a great instructor, learned lots of good things. I've got some here on the video, and I hope you guys enjoy, and thanks for watching. Not everything that you can learn is from the Burbstead, certainly not everything from me, so I've got some interesting friends that can help teach us. Pay attention, learn. Leave some comments. Any questions, I'll forward them on. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.
You're going to be just walking in. This stuff isn't legal trapping season type trapping. This is survival trapping. It's not something you're going to want to do unless you have to. But again, this isn't something you're going to be doing day to day. I hope this isn't something you choose to use day to day for trap line or just. There's plenty of good methods out there that are legal. They're a little more effective and a little more, gives you a broader range of possibilities once you're in the jam. First thing I'm going to do is explain a little bit about trapping. Basically, the trap itself, as I was saying, is a small portion of what you're looking for success. The trap itself is the mechanical parts of the trap. There's a bunch of different ways you can do stuff. Where you put it is the highest percentage of your success. Knowing where the animals are going to travel, finding travel trails, knowing what your particular target animals are going to be curious about. A lot of times, a lot of people think, well, they'll bait a trap with food, and in some seasons, in some times a year, that's a great thing to do. Early in the spring, February, March, April, before a lot of things have started growing well, it's a lean time for a lot of animals, including humans. So food's a good bait source. Curiosity in most cases is enough for a lot of animals. There are coon traps that you can take a log, take your pocket knife or brace and bit if you have one, and drill a hole about 1.25 inches or so down into the log, about 3 or 4 inches. Take some simple nails or screws and put it at an angle so they stick into the hole at an angle. And then put a dime or marshmallow or a piece of tin foil or a drop of cologne, or in some cases, anything curious. It'll make them wonder and get their nose will bring them to the hole. Their curiosity and their eyesight will show them there's something at the bottom. They'll reach past those prongs, grab what it is, and they will not let go. All they have to do is let go and pull their hand out the same way it went in, and they won't.
Monkey trap.
They won't. Yep. Little colored marshmallows. Put them down in there. Rub them around on the log, and then stick them down in the hole. And they'll smell that sugary smell, especially with dampness in the morning and the evening. At night it gets damp. That carries the scent a little farther. They'll come find them. They'll stick their hand down in there, and all you'll see when you walk up is, "Damn, I wish I could get out of here." They won't let go. Just
That's great.
knock them off with a stick and.
Dinner's ready?
Yep. You see here in my bag, I've got a rat trap. You get 2 of them at the dollar store for $1, I think. They might be $1 a piece, I can't remember. But I just took some tan paint and colored mine up. You would take this part loose. This is only to hold it in place. Take that little staple out. I drilled a couple holes in it so you can attach it to a tree. You take a piece of cloth, a little tag off your clothes, a little bit of your sock or any kind of material, piece of corn off a wash rag, and course, we're talking survival type situation or camping situation, our hygiene isn't as good. So you can take that little bit of cloth and rub it behind your ears, rub it along, grease along here, along your nose. Other pivot points and joints in the body carry some funk. And just put a little bit of that, hang it up right here on your trigger. Squirrels and chipmunks will come right to it for the oil and the salt. And this definitely has enough oomph to take a squirrel or a chipmunk.
We'll take out a rat, we'll take a squirrel, a chipmunk, yeah.
So you don't even have to have food. Now, once you have that squirrel or that chipmunk, and you can use this sharp rock or make a stick pointing on a rock, sharpen it on a rock, that'll do enough to gut it. But you get those entrails. There's certain parts on the inside of a squirrel you probably don't want to eat yourself, but everything else in the woods loves them. Now, I would eat the meat of the squirrel. I'd eat the liver. I'd eat the heart, lungs, kidneys, entrails. Let them go. Use those. I should have, but I don't. In my fishing kit, a couple of like number 1 or 0-aught treble hooks. Take some of your snare wire, if you have snare wire, some mason line, any kind of tough cordage.
Like the bank line.
Bank line works. You take that treble hook and you tie it securely on one end of the bank line. You tie the other end onto a branch or a sapling, generally a branch off a tree, and you let that treble hook hang. Coyote standing up is about this big, up on their hind legs is about here, so you get it about what would be 6 inches above their nose when they're up on their hind legs. And you hang those entrails on that and you just hang it there. And you make sure it's tied on a branch that's sturdy enough that it's got a little spring, but it won't let them bend down and get all 4 feet on the ground. And they'll jump up and pull that treble hook. And now they're hanging there. They can't get leverage because they only have 2 feet on the ground. And again, you come along with your stick. And wherever you make your cat trench, wherever you make your latrine, somewhere nearby there's going to be a trail where you can set that trap, because they'll come by and check out what you're leaving in the hole. They'll check out your waste. Probably won't do anything with it, but that's a way for them to tell what you're about. They can tell, a dog or an animal can tell what you're eating and how healthy you are by the waste you leave on the ground. So a coyote, not being as big as we are, they're going to wait till they find a human that's weakened, sick, and then that's fair game. So somewhere near your latrine down one of your latrines is a good spot to hang that, because a lot of different animals will come through and get a hold of it. It not only works for the coyotes, depending on the other brush structure around, you can get possums climbing down to it and get a hold of it and get hung up on it. Coons or something, they get a hold of it too. But most likely the height you have to hang it to make it effective for a coyote, that's what you're going to catch. Secure your traps. Like I said, you'll want to tie this onto a tree or onto a log laying along the ground. Travel routes for squirrels. We've all watched squirrels play in the woods while we do other things. They'll get up on a dead log and they'll run the whole log like a highway. They're up higher, they can see what's going on around them, it makes less noise, it's a good travel route for them. Tie something like that and make these snares I'm going to teach you. You can make what's called a squirrel pole. Oftentimes you'll see a dead tree that's fallen but hasn't fallen all the way to the ground. You get about a 30 or 45 degree angle laying up against another tree. If it goes far enough to where there's a point where the tree is 5-6 feet off the ground, anywhere from about 2 to 3 feet off the ground to about as high as you can reach, you can take these small snares and set them up on top, just small snare loops that I'll show you how to make. And make 2 or 3 or 4 of them on that section of pole. Okay, tied to the log, squirrels will run through, they'll get caught, they'll fall off, and it's hanging where they can't get a hold of anything else to climb up. They're done. Their actions and their noise that they're making are going to draw more more squirrels. Other squirrels will come and mark at them, and they'll come right down and get the next snare on the log. Okay, and in the actions and the thrashing around of the animals, it's also a good place to set snares on the ground for other game. The more you pay attention to what's going on around you in the woods, you'll see, if you just walk through a section of woods, take a short amount of time and walk through the woods and look at what's around, you're going to get a whole different picture than if you stop and sit for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. Because everything settles down, you'll see where the chipmunks run, where the squirrels go, where they hide. You'll see that squirrels come out of the crotches of the tree. They're not always in a den in a tree. They're not always in a leaf nest. Sometimes, especially like sycamore and chestnut, they have when they split, when they branch, It's a wide, shallow area, and leaf litter will build up in there, and it's just, you can't see it from the ground, but a lot of times, especially on a windy day, you'll walk past and watch those forks of the tree or crotch of the tree, and you'll see the squirrel's tail blowing in the wind. Where they're hidden down in the hole, but the wind's moving their tail and putting it in your visible line of sight. So noticing that stuff, where they're at and how they use it, you can go 30 days without eating. If you have water, you can live 30 days and live. Now after a week or two, you're fatigued, you don't have the energy, your attention span and your thought processes are slowed. So food's relatively important on the ladder of importance when it comes to survival, but it's not at the top. Shelter. And you think shelter, well, it's going to take a long time to build shelter. Anybody heard the rules of 3? Okay, you can live 30 days without food. You can live 3 days without water. You can live 3 minutes without air. You can live 30 seconds without shelter. Okay? The minute you put one of these other things in place in front of shelter, you're in trouble because your core body temperature is going to suffer, whether it's getting too hot or getting too cold. Okay? You need to make sure you have somewhere to be. It's a mental thing too. Once you have, even if it's just a hidey hole under a dead log, you got a log laying down a couple feet underneath, generally keeps it dry. You'll have a leaf bed under there that it's going to be insulation. You can just lay a few pine branches across, blocks the wind. You've got someplace to be. Now you have a home. And that is a big mental bonus when it comes to the survival situation. So food is way down on the list. You need shelter first. You need to think first. 3 seconds without thinking is the next one. The minute you get in a jam and you quit thinking, you're done. You're done. Because you're gonna bypass things you need to do. You're gonna not see resources that you have to have, so on and so forth. So again, it's 30 days without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without air, 30 seconds without shelter, and 3 seconds without thinking. So the first thing you do when you figure out you're in a jam is stop, sit down, think about how you got there, think about what you need to do to get out of there. Like I said, it could be a broken down boat or vehicle of some kind that has left you farther away than you care to walk from somewhere. It may take you a day or two to equip yourself or feed yourself until you can make your way out. What takes us half an hour to ride into somewhere on a four-wheeler is a day's walk once you have to hump your stuff out of there. So take the time to sit down and think about what's going on and plan a course. Get your mind in the game, because that's the best tool you're carrying. I'll teach a couple of snares real quick. Generally, there's only 2 different types that I generally use when I'm talking about homemade snares, and it works whether it's with wire or whether it's with kind of twine. I use the bright orange mason twine a lot in my packs just because of the visibility of it. Now, as it weathers a little bit, it's not as bright. In general, animals are going to be more worried about the smell of what you have going on than they are about the color or the. If you can get white twine, I have some white twisted nylon here, which is in some ways it's better. It doesn't have as much tensile strength. Mason twine is 50 to 75 pounds, so you can hang a piece of mason twine and hang a coyote on it, and it's going to hang it. It's going to stay. Especially if you double it, like for that hanging coyote trap, you would double that. And that'll give you definitely enough tension to hold as he's pulling and fighting and struggling.
Yeah, this number 32 bank line, what, 300 pounds? It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, I use like number 18, which is 125 to 150 pounds. It's more than enough. If you need more than that, braid it. Then you got 300 to 400 pound rope. You know what I mean? And it still has a real supple. It's bendable. It's tieable. It's not so thick that you can't tie it or anything. But this nylon twine here. It's cheap. You can get I think it's a 50 or 100 foot roll I got for $1.50 somewhere. Just keep it, floating around the garage for whatever you need, and pretty handy. Great thing about this twisted nylon twine is, let's say I need to lash up something to make so I have a spring pull. Maybe a trail that goes through a field and there's really nothing substantial to tie off to. I can take a couple twigs or small saplings. I could take this, plant one end in the ground, make an X out of two other saplings, tie them together and lash this up so I have a spring pole nearby. And the trails don't always run right next to where you need, next to a spring pole that you would need or some kind of engine for your device or an anchor point. But with this twisted nylon, you can separate it pretty easily, okay? Once you separate it out, each one of these 3 strands can be used for lashing. You can use this pretty light tensile twine. It's pretty strong. But instead of using the whole thing as one to lash with, you can separate it out and use those lighter twines for lashing. Same thing with paracord. It's got several strands inside it of cordage. You know, some of it the lighter lashing type stuff, and then the outside covering, the outside nylon braided covering, is still a substantial tying device once you've taken the kind of.
You got the arch stuff? Yeah.
I think that really the only part it does is it kind of adds a little bit of, you know, by wetting something out, like take cotton wet and it makes it a little stronger.
Keeps it from rotting.
Dry rotting.
Yeah.
It stops the dry rot and it makes your knots bind a little tighter.
Speaking of Walmart, is that the clearance bag?
You can see each one of these strands. You can hand that around too. Each one of those strands.
Twisted or?
Yeah, it's twisted. It's twisted. But you know, you can pull that paracord apart, and you've got 7 strands inside it that are 6 feet long, plus the 6 foot long covering, which is even sturdier. You can go a long way with something like that. Like I was saying with the wire, whether I'm using wire or whether I'm using the mason line, I generally use the same type of slip knot for my snare knot, for the actual snare loop itself. The only difference is with wire you can twist it and it'll stay, and with the mason's line you have to actually use a slip knot. But what I will do is, these rolls are usually about 20 feet. Usually plenty enough to get several snares out of. Usually I use between 2 and 3 feet depending on what I'm snaring. 2 and 3 feet is plenty enough. I got bypass cutters which don't work real well on the cable, but
I don't know if mine's any stronger.
I don't want to cut it with a knife because that tool of the knife, you need an edge on it. Once you ruin it, cut the wire. Yeah, you're done. Thank you, sir.
Well, now I'm curious. I don't know if it'll do it.
Try this light stuff before you try cutting that tow cable.
Oh, this is what I carry.
Okay. Practice with what you use. What's that?
What kind of wire was that?
This is picture hanging wire.
Okay.
It's just a braided. They generally use stainless, of some kind of weak stainless. It's not a hard annealed wire. It's a weaker braided wire, which is plenty enough in most cases for what you're going to be doing with it.
So you think this will oxidize and corrode probably?
It will eventually. It will, but for what
You wanna look at it?
what you're using it for, yeah, you guys can feel free to come up and check this out.
That one's the bigger one though. That's the picture wire from Walmart. It's 100 pound.
Well, they
I
have
don't
them-
recommend it.
That's where I get mine, and they have it down to 15 pound.
Yeah.
I really like the 15 pound for just squirrel snares and rabbit snares. But if you're going to run any coons or anything bigger than that, a little stronger than that, the 30 pound isn't a bad. The knot I use, whether I use wire or mason's line or bank line or something like that, I'm going to take, when it comes to wire, I'm going to take about 1.5 inches or 2 inches and reserve that for the actual twist itself. I'm then going to make 1 loop, 2 loops. So I've got a double coil there, and then shorten that up, make it a little smaller so I can run my snare line through it, and then twist this off like you would a bread tie. Really, you're just going to protect that double coil there with your pinching it, finger and thumb, and then you can twist this off 4, 5, 6 times, whatever it takes to take up that slack. So it can't pull free, is what you're looking for. Then you'll take your snare line, run it through your double loop. You can actually, being that it's wire, this works out well, you can kink it a little bit right by the loop so that it'll actually lay and hold open, okay? And then you would tie this off to your limb or to your trigger. In the case of this, I would take and tie this off above. This is a single trigger system that I'm going to show you. I would tie it off above my locking notch. I just made a little L notch in that, and it matches up with an L notch here. When I put the spring pole in place and put tension on it, it just hooks up against here. So the tension going up keeps it in place. If you wanted to, you could cut a little groove around here to securely hold your snare wire and tie your snare wire off low, doesn't matter. I generally tend to tie it off above so that any leverage that's put on, once that snare tightens up, okay, I've got upward pressure here, the leverage is actually going to pull that trigger apart. If you pull the bottom out, depending on how you've cut your notch, you can get a lot of play before it releases the trigger. When you're up high, it's going to pull down or pull away from the latch. Because of your excess down here, it's going to act as a lever, and can, as soon as it turns enough to make contact, it pops it loose. Okay, and then snap. You don't need a lot of spring tension. You're not trying to keep the animal up off the ground. You have a lot of predators such as coyotes or feral cats and dogs, stuff like that. You may want it to have enough pressure to lift that rabbit or squirrel high enough that a coyote can get to it. You don't want to share your effort, okay? But you could use that just to twist around that trigger there. And generally, if you're using smaller twigs, there's going to be a knot or a notch or something that you can, again, just like a bread tie, just get another inch or so past your trigger stick. And when you twist it off, before you twist it tight, you want to make sure that the knot is on exactly the opposite side of your trigger latch, of your L latch there. So any pressure pulls on it, it pulls directly away from the trigger system. Okay? And just twist it up tight.